Hi everyone. This tutorial is going to be on the different effects in Photoshop and how to apply them to your layers. Alright, let's get started. So I have my movie title here and I want to add some effects to it. There are a couple different ways to go about that. We can, with our layer selected, go down to the effects icon right here, and if you click on it, it's going to bring up the different effects you can add. So you can just add one from here, or if you double click on the layer, not right here or on the title here to rename it, but off to the side to this empty spot. If you double click that, it's going to bring up our layer style panel, and this is where you can add all of those effects. Alright, I'm just going to run through some of these and show you a few different examples. You can go through these and experiment in more depth. So on the side here we have all of our different effects, and to add it to our title here, you just have to click on it. When you click on it, it's going to add a check mark. That means that it's added. And then we're also going to get some options in the side here. You can also see under our layer here, we now have an effects icon, and under that we have a bevel and emboss icon, and that's the one we just added right now. Okay, so right now the bevel is on, and then you can go through these different options here and adjust it all you want. So we have an outer bevel. You can adjust things like the depth and the size. You can soften them. You can change it to an inner bevel. And again, we still have all of these options here. You can soften it. You can change things like the shadow and highlight colors, also how they blend with the text below. So just like our normal blend modes, we have screen and multiply here, and you can adjust those to any one you want. To turn off the effect while we're in here, you just need to click off the little check mark here, and that's going to turn off that layer style. We can try some different ones here. Right now we have a stroke on that's black, and the reason it covered the entire thing is because the size is up so high. So if we bring that down, we can adjust our stroke. We can put it on the outside, we can put it on the inside, or on the center, which is just right on the center line around the text. You have the same blend modes and opacity as well, and we can change the color here. We have an inner shadow, which is creating a shadow inside the text, as opposed to the drop shadow, which creates it outside the text. And we have our options in here for changing the opacity of it. You can change the blend mode. You can change the color of your shadow here. We can change the distance, the size, the choke, which kind of tightens up the shadow. I'll just turn that one off, and we have an inner glow, which adds a glow to the inside of the text, and we have different options in here. You can adjust the opacity, you can adjust the noise on it, you can change the color of the glow, and you also have a gradient for the glow here that you can change if you want. You have some options in here for your size, and again the choke, which tightens it up. Satin I don't really use, but feel free to try this one out. I think it's going to add a satin finish to it, and you can go and adjust these to try to get the look you want. Color overlay replaces the whole thing with a new color. So right now it's set to white and blending in with the background, but you can change that to any color you want. This is just a nice way to try out different colors. If you're not sure about the one you have, you can just come in and try out some different ones and just turn them off and on. You can also change the opacity between the two, and you have the same blend modes here. We also have a gradient overlay here, and that's just going to overlay it with a gradient. Right now it's on black and white, and you can blend that in to the color below. And in here, if you double click on the gradient, you can get your different options for the gradient in here, and you can add colors, and you can change the gradient here if you want, and then you can change the angle, you can change the size of it, and all of your options are in here. The pattern overlay is similar to the color overlay. It just replaces it with a pattern, and you have a few options in here, and you can also load in your own patterns if you want from here. We also have an outer glow. I'm just going to change the color of it here so you could see it. And you have options to turn the noise down. The size is really high, so that's why it's so far away from it. The spread will soften that. And we can adjust the opacity as well. And if you use the outer glow along with the inner glow, you can combine them and add a lot of glow to your text that way. And then we also have the drop shadow. And you have similar options in here for adjusting the size and shape of your shadow. We can change the color and opacity of it as well. If you want to go in after and adjust your shadow, you can just double click on it here, and it's going to open this up, and you can go in and make changes to it. You can also have multiple effects on if you want, and they're all just going to show up underneath here. And like I said, you can just turn them off and on with the little eyeball beside them, or turn off everything with the one above it. You can collapse these so you don't see them all the time by just clicking on this arrow right here, and now they're hidden, and to show them, you can open it up again the same way. And this icon right here just lets you know what layers have effects on them. One other cool thing you can do is copy your effects from one layer to another. So if I'm happy with the way these look, I'm going to come over to the effects icon here, right click on it, and do copy layer style. Then I'm going to right click on this one here and do paste layer style. And that's going to paste the effects from this one over to this one. Alright, so feel free to experiment with these different effects. I also have links to different Photoshop text effects, so you should be able to find a tutorial to achieve the look you want for your text. Okay, one more thing I wanted to show you is how to create a cast shadow out of a drop shadow. And I'll just go over to this project now. So I have this guy here masked out on a transparent background, and what I'm going to do is add the drop shadow to him, and then I'm going to take that drop shadow, convert it to its own layer, and make a cast shadow out of it, and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so first thing I'll do is with my layer selected, go to my effects and do a drop shadow. That's going to add the shadow to him. Let's move this over here so we can see it. I'm going to crank the opacity up and the distance. I forgot to mention as well with the distance, you can move it like this, but you can also grab it with your mouse and move it anywhere like this, and that's going to adjust the angle and the distance. I find this easier just to get it to the exact place you want. Alright, so I'm just going to move it off of him. It doesn't really matter right now. And I'm just going to soften it a bit with the size, and I'll hit OK. Now we have this drop shadow behind him, but I want it to be a cast shadow on the ground. So what I'm going to do is right click on the drop shadow, and then I'm going to do create layer. I'm going to get this warning that says some aspects of the effects cannot be reproduced with layers, but that's okay because the cast shadow can. I'll hit OK, and what that did was remove the cast shadow from our layer here and put it below. So now what I can do with this is free transform the shadow and move that around, rotate it all I want. Okay, so you could go in here and do transform and adjust the perspective, distort it, and skew it just to get the shape you want, but I'm going to show you a shortcut for doing all of that. So I'll put it behind him here. And then if I hold Control or Command on a Mac and drag from any one of these little anchors here, it's going to distort it. And now holding Control, I can move it pretty much any way I want. And I can grab different corners, and I could just adjust the shape of it, the perspective, all from here. So what I'm going to do is just get a shape that I like, maybe extend it a bit. And once you have something that you like, just maybe move this a bit to get his foot under there. And then I'm just going to hit enter. And you can nudge the whole layer with your arrows if you want. Alright, so now that I have a cast shadow from him, I can go in and adjust the opacity a bit. And there you go. I just gave him a cast shadow really quickly from using the drop shadow that we created as a layer and then just converting it to its own one. So that's a really easy and quick way to make your own cast shadows. Alright, that's going to do it for this lesson on layer styles in Photoshop.